Hi everyone, Jennifer Blevins-Smith with Integral Clinic Solutions, and you're watching my YouTube channel, Navigating the Business of Medicine. Today I want to talk about standard operating procedures for the clinic. I did a video about clinic policies, and the procedures go hand in hand with the procedures. So it only makes sense that I would do now a video on these. Standard operating procedures really come in handy, especially when you're training new staff, or you have staff that sometimes work in different departments, different roles, and it's not very often, so they need something to refresh them when they're in that role. They can reference it to help them get through and make sure they're doing everything as expected. It also comes in handy when you're doing staff reviews, performance reviews specifically, if you need to reprimand somebody for something they did or did not do, as well as just ensuring that things are covered if you were ever to get audited, if you were ever to get questioned by some kind of bigger entity, you have things that support the way things should be done in the practice. I worked at an entity that an employee reported someone to the board, a certain board. I'm not going to say much other than some licensing certifying board, and they did an investigation. And there was no concrete evidence supporting what that disgruntled former employee reported. And because our practice, our business, had standard operating procedures that were outlining what everyone's role was, what the nurses' roles were versus the medical assistants' roles, there was really no case, and they saw that, they reviewed them, and they actually complimented us for having such thorough information and expectations for our staff that they closed it and nothing else ever happened. That's because we were very clear. We knew the scope of all of our staff, and because we knew the scope of all of our staff, the nurses versus what the medical assistants could do versus the front office, our CNAs, because we hired some CNAs, we knew the scope. So our standard operating procedures reflected what they were able to do in their scopes and in their roles in our practice. And obviously, if we found out they were working outside their scope, outside of the operating procedures that are set out for them in different tasks, then we had every right to do whatever we needed to do to rectify that. Now, of course, if it was something egregious, they probably wouldn't have a job anymore. If it was something minor, it might be a warning, written warning type reminder, but overall, that supported us management administration, and it came in very handy in this situation. So I'm a big believer in SOPs, or standardized operating procedures, for all the reasons that I've already mentioned. And then when that happened, I was like, wow, that just solidified why I really do believe in these, not only as a resource for my staff, but also because of legal type things that could come up. You never know what's going to happen, and as a provider, owner, manager, you should really make sure that you're watching your back, the business's back, but also have your staff's back. And by doing that, you're setting them up for success. You're giving them all the resources you can for them to do their jobs as successfully as possible. The SOPs ideally should be like step-by-step instructions of things that should be done in whatever tasks they will be fulfilling in their roles. And yes, it sounds very overwhelming and cumbersome, but you could ask your staff to help you with these SOPs. I've done that. They're the ones actually doing the job, right? So they might put in a piece that you would forget if you're trying to do it. You're not working the front desk all the time. You might miss a step. You might miss an important aspect to a step, and they are going to be the ones that do that. So what I have asked my staff to do is divide up, give different criteria, like you work on patient registration, you work on administering medications, you work on rooming patients, you work on checking patients in, whatever their roles are and the tasks, and ask them to write the SOPs. And then I would review them and put them in a binder and put them in the respective locations for them to easily assess. It's really good to get your staff involved because they feel like they're being heard, they feel like they're being appreciated, which they should be because they are important. And they can maybe go through this and go, you know what, this really isn't working out very well. Do you think it's okay if we try to change it to this, or if we try doing it this way to see if it's more efficient? And I love that. I love hearing ideas from my staff. I love getting their input because they're the ones, like I said, actually doing the job. And if they're not happy with the way something's being done, or they see how it's affecting patients negatively or positively even, that feedback is really good. And being a good manager, owner, you want that feedback, whether it's constructive or not. You want to hear it and take it any way you want to. Making decisions and doing the stuff in a closed silo sometimes really upsets people because they feel like, oh, the management's making decisions when they don't do the job every day. I mean, probably you yourself have felt that at some point in a job, right? Like, why am I doing this? The person that made this decision for this to be done this way obviously doesn't do this job because it makes no sense, or it takes too much time. There would be a better way. And you don't want to have your staff to feel that way, or at least I don't. I feel that their input is very important and it's valuable. They're the ones that are interacting with the patients all the time, so taking feedback from patients and applying it maybe to things that we're doing or not doing is also important. So creating those SOPs with your staff, or if you already have existing SOPs and maybe they need to be renewed, they need to be looked at because they honestly should be updated regularly. And that's one of the kind of daunting tasks of having SOPs, is maintaining them. But maybe ask them to go through it and make notes and say, okay, we need to go through our SOPs. We need to change anything that's been changed in our real life work environment. We need to add procedures that have been added since these have been created. We need to take away ones that are no longer applicable. So get their feedback and ask them to review and maybe create the new ones and go from there. Just because you don't need to have them create all from brand new doesn't mean you can't get them to participate in existing. Like I said, the standard operating procedures, in my roles in the past, when I've been thrown in to have to do something that I haven't done very often, and I'm like, ooh, it's been a long time since I've done this, it's so nice to know, okay, I can just go there and it points out to me exactly in detail, oh, I forgot about that step, oh, that's good, I'm glad I read that, etc. I also would send them home with my staff. If they were really eager to learn, my new hires, and they were like, oh, do you have anything I can read or I can research? I'd be like, yeah, you can take this home. And they would do it after hours because they wanted to do a good job. And they would come back and go, oh my gosh, this was so helpful. Thank you so much. It's so nice to know that if I don't remember this today, I know where I can go to reference it. And it's just, in my opinion, setting yourself up for success to have happy employees, to have your backs covered, and also that you can reference and use it to, like I said, do performance reviews or any kind of disciplinary thing that might need to happen. It's all black and white. Again, the most daunting thing about SOPs is making sure they're staying updated, they're maintained, and just keeping that on your radar, because so many other things come up that need to be done that sometimes that gets missed. So planning ahead, making sure a certain time of every year maybe is the time that you've set aside to make sure those get done is super important. Also, like for my staff working the floor, if I wanted them to participate in this, like I said, I would try to schedule them an hour, hour and a half off the floor, off the front desk, where they were maybe in a room or in an office where they could sit and actually just focus on that task. So I wasn't trying to ask them to balance it with their daily tasks that they already had, because I didn't want them to feel overwhelmed. But depending on your practice, your patient volume, your specialty, you might have some opportunities where your staff have some downtime. This would be a perfect thing to give to them as well, to make sure that they're not doing things they shouldn't be, like on the computer shopping or looking on their phones at Facebook or social media. And it's just good to have those expectations and setting deadlines. Deadlines are super important when it comes to this, and it's just yeah, you should just plan on making sure that you review everything. It gets your final stamp of approval, whether you're the manager or the provider, or maybe the provider wants to do the final seal of approval depending on the role, like for medical assistants or nurses. Whoever's responsible for that role should probably have the final say and review. But I mean, I just encourage to have SOPs and also ask your staff to participate in reviewing and or creating those SOPs. If you have any questions or comments about this, please leave that in the comments below. Smash the thumbs up button if today's video was helpful, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. As always, please share my video with all of your colleagues whom you feel would benefit. Thank you so much for the support. Thank you for watching. It means a lot to me. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.